Hello, I didn't see you there. So, Linux Admin Briefs. This is Season 7, Episode 3, Application Installs on Linux with Ansible. Funnily enough. So, we're going to install apps like Apache today as a bit of an example. The last one, we were moving files around, we added some users. Now we're going to install apps, stop and start services. As usual, the files are all up on Git. In the folder Season 7 Episode 3, well, they will be by the time you look at this for all of the 31 subscribers. Of that, 18 are from motorbikes though. So whatever the delta is there, thank you. So we've got an updated play, obviously. There's also some ignore factors. You can ignore the dev group in the inventory file. In the inv.yaml, you can also ignore a group file for jbuntu and a host descriptor file. So the host file for jbuntu was just something I had to play with because well, you'll see it has to do with restart and restarted, and it was doing my head, and it's just because I haven't done this in about 3 months. So when did COVID start? That was the last time I was using Ansible as a day job, doing some work in Perth as I take a bit of a sip of time before it goes cold. So this is a real world scenario where we take some baby steps to installing applications on Linux. This time, the infamous Apache web server. At the end of this, you can have the basics to build upon and chain multiple application installs together, register services, and stop and start them. Say you're a networker and you've done a deployment and it's still in that warranty phase, in that burn-in phase. You're more than likely going to ask the client or for some type of instance so you can do your own monitoring before you move to production. This is one of those scenarios where you might have a Pi, or they'll just give you some compute where you're going to run up Nagios. Let's just face it, it won't be Nagios. It will more than likely be Libre or Zabbix. People love or hate those two ones there. But this is a way that you could go to the client instead of spending 8 hours, which you can't bill them for. You could just have this up your sleeve. Just, hey, here's something I can quickly deploy this play as long as I've got the relevant type of interwebs access to put down the packages. And you can move across a config file that you edit offline and it starts monitoring your infrastructure on the spot. So as Dave Chappelle says, we're going to get real mad real soon. Yep, says it. So the goals of this one, as we just briefly touched on, understand how to apt. Remember, apt is in the world of Ubuntu or Debian. It's a package manager, and Apache is the package we want to install. And we're going to apply this to all three of our super powerful Pis. And don't mock Pis if you're out there and you're a hiring manager. There's nothing wrong with Pis. Just ask Geerling Guy his thoughts on Pis. Understand how to call the service module. We haven't touched the service module, I don't believe, so far. And it's responsible, if you come from a Windows background, stop, start, and register services. But this is going to be on Ubuntu. And the last part we're going to recap is we're going to use the copy module, which we've used a few times in this series, to take, well, a file. We're going to take a snippet. But if you had a config file that you wanted to push across, it's very much the same syntax. So install Apache, enable a service to run Apache, copy your web page over, and restart the service. So copy it over to Pi 10203, and here's something I did earlier, and that's on that jbuntu dev instance, which you can ignore. So where can you get further information on the modules? Once again, if you can read the modules, everything will come easy to you. For here, manage services, and we can see where you can get more information on that. It's there. And for the apps package manager, once again, just go over to the Ansible modules page, search for what you're looking for in this case, service or apt. And away you go. So now it's time to look at the play itself, and we'll walk through the play and then we'll type it. So what have we got here? We have a single play and it's got multiple tasks in it. So we're aiming this at the Linuxes, so Pi 1, 2, 3. And we will need to become, so this is going to invoke the sudoer because we're going to install some packages as I take a bit of sippy time again. All right, the first one we're doing, we're invoking the apt package manager module. Now I have a loop condition here. You don't need to. We could have just thrown Apache 2 into the sub-argument of apt. And remember, when we talk state, we want this to be installed. So we want it to be present. And we're once again iterating over loop. So item is Apache 2. If we had other things in there, they would just be installed sequentially. Second task is, when you think about this, did this part need to exist? Probably not. It could have existed later on. I'll explain. We're going to invoke the service module, and it will manage services on most Linux distros. It needs name. So the Apache 2 service, the end state that we want it to be started. And enabled means enable this, so on startup, will this service turn on? Yes, I think that's a very simple way of explaining that. Task 3, back to the copy module, which we've covered a few times. What we're just going to take is this string right here, and we're just going to dump it on the target, which is var www.html index.html, or as the French would say, var www, and they sound silly, don't they? They do. And that's just going to replace the default Apache install page. The default looks way better than what we're going to chuck on, by the way. And task 4, you could ask yourself, is task 2 needed? Could you have done task 4, taken task 2 and made it task 4? The answer is yeah, that would have actually been a much better idea. So what we're doing, again, service module, the name of the service we want to restart, which is Apache 2. If you're a rel person, that will be httpd, and remember, restarted, not restart. You will sit there looking at the screen wondering what you did wrong for best part of 25 minutes, possibly. All right, let's do it. Let's deploy Apache. So let's get our good trusty friend, our Pop! OS Linux machine on the 29th of September. That means it's close to payday. No longer Dre Day, because it's payday. As we log in, okay, forget Arista. I'd love to see what people think of Arista and Cloud Vision. So we are writing a play, and yeah, I may have already written it and saved it, but we're going to write it again. So let's start it off. Let's declare this as a YAML file. Let's target some hosts to run this against, and we want to run this against Linuxes. And the reason you can tell I've already saved this before, see how it understands YAML straight away. Linuxes. Sorry, bug in the throat. Gather facts. No, we do not wish to gather useless facts at this point in time. Become. We indeed do need to become, because we're going to have to sudo up to use apt to install packages. Because remember in the last episode, we put our super trusty user, sysadminjb, into the sudoers group, and we confirmed that with the ID command. So become, yes, tasks. Now, we've got multiple tasks, but the first, name, so we can see it across the screen. Remember, this is a personal choice. You don't need to do this. I like to, so I can see it. Task 1 is install Apache 2 via apt. Now, another great way to do it would have been via a snap. Snaps are really cool. I just didn't want to introduce something completely foreign. If you're a networker coming to Linux, snaps will be completely foreign concept to you. I don't think we covered them. We might have covered them when we were setting up our Pop! OS box. Snap is a great way to package applications. You can also see them on the desktop, but go check out Snap. So snaps and the Snap home. I digress. So name, it is in a install Apache. So we are going to be calling the apt module. Apt module has a sub argument of what's the name of the module we wish to install. Here, because we said we've got a list, we didn't need one. However, we got one. We could have indeed just put Apache 2 right there and it would have worked just fine. However, where I've ripped this from, the last one I did was I was installing Apache, I was installing NTP, there was a few other things which I can't be bothered talking about. But it was for an Elastic Stack. Okay, so the state, by the end of this, we want Apache 2 present. Now, in future iterations, if we keep running this and Apache 2 isn't there, it will go and install it. If it is there, remember the item potency, it won't install it again over the top. And because we are a little strange, we will loop over a list of applications or packages to install. There's only one, Apache 2. How are we going for time? 11 minutes. Okay, this could be a tight one. Excellent. Their second task in this play. Task 2. Which is enable and start Apache 2. Apache 2, we should respectfully call it what it's called, Apache 2, one word. So we're going to leverage the service module, or Service. The service has a sub-argument of name. Obviously, we want to restart Apache 2. That is the name of it. We want the state to be started, and enabled. Remember, at startup we want this enabled, so when my Pi boots, it's enabled, this service turns on. Great. Third task is task 3, which is we want to copy across the file. We don't have to, but we're going to anyway. Copy across a really terrible default web page. And to do this, we are going to use the copy module. Copy module has sub-argument, in this case, what content. Now, I'm just going to quickly cut and paste this part with my mouse, because I've moved my screens around, it's all so confusing. So copy, and what we'll do is we'll just paste that over the top. Voila. So we're copying this string of text right here. One thing it does have is inventory hostname. So this is a magic variable, and it's what gets taken from the inventory itself, such as it's not going to be in the host specific variables. This is what ARPAO1, ARPAO2, ARPAO3, and it's not what it thinks. For example, the hostname is on the box. It's the hostname as seen by Ansible's inventory. And where we're chucking this in www.html index.html, which is where it finds the default content to serve up. And you know what? I will copy and paste the last part because we've kind of covered it before. We're just talking more about the service module and how we want it to restart Apache 2 service. So what we can do now is we can save that. So it's going to go out to the 3 pies. So we're going to Ansible -playbook-i, which takes us to the path to our inventory, which is always important, which is inventory, inv.yaml, path to the plays, which is one folder beneath me in plays, and what do we just call that? Play season 7, episode 3, and that should be the only one in there, so I should be able to tab out. And let's make this a little bit bigger so we can see what's happening. And that will now execute. How are we doing for time? 14 minutes 40. Excellent. So what's happening right now? It's going out to the various Raspberry Pis. It's invoking the apt module. Apt is now downloading the various packages from the interwebs, such as Apache 2, and where needed, satisfying dependencies. Excellent, so that has now happened. So it's moved to the second play, which is enable and start Apache. Great. It's now moving across to the third play, which is that really awful website, which you will see in a second. And the last one is it's restarting Apache 2 right there. So now we should be able to go over. I'm just going to do this on my host. Just bring up into this area here, which is HTTP 100.61.0.104. You know what? The reason I had to redo this is because I killed one of the pies during this exercise. And it is 115. Yay! Pi 01 has some strange problems, if you remember, in a few episodes ago, where it just fell off the face of the planet. And 116. Believe me, they're all working. There's nothing to see here. But what? There we go. That's where we invoked the inventory hostname. And this is the awful ghetto web page that I was telling you about. Just to have a look at what's going on. Ping 100.61.0.104, which is Apache 01. It's got problems. We'll sort that out later. It's just, I'm not going to record this episode a fifth time. It's there, trust me. Just get on with it. So validate the deployment. We did validate the deployment with varying ranges of success. 116. I actually know the problem, and it's got nothing to do with this. It's got more to do with free range routing from a few episodes we did a while ago, and shenanigans going on right there. So what? 115's up and dancing. 104, I have a feeling it's because they're the two that I've actually got. Well, I did another lab where I was doing some route redistribution with free range, and that's actually the problem. So that takes us to the end of season 3, where we did some Linux administration. So at the end of this one, we've learnt how to work with files in a Linux world. I mean, very basic. You've got to remember the context of what we're doing, such as if you're doing iOS upgrades or Junos upgrades, or even the infamous Arista stuff we had on the screen earlier. Just how to get files up to your various repo servers, so you don't have to so say you're doing work in Perth, you don't have to drag it across from Sydney. You just fire up a little instance over there, push all the files across all your infrastructure, and do your upgrades locally. We talked about how to delete files. So remember when you got your angry DevOps called Charis, who's chasing you for leaving all your files around? We've talked about how to delete files. We've talked about how to add users if you're spinning up infrastructure. We talked about that. And in this one, how to deploy packages and stop and start services. Remember, you're going to have some issues, and the way you learn is by debugging those issues. A lot of the time it's going to be syntax, such as your indentation, or you're going to have comment markers missing, stuff like that. But once again, thanks for everyone's support. Please enjoy Linux, expand your skills, and I'm going to need a week to build the FortiGate series. That one isn't going to be easy. If you go and have a look at how many modules comprise for FortiGate, you will do your head. Anyway, thank you all. Love to see some comments. Cheers.